Hello friends and welcome back to the Noclip podcast episode 71, here with a full team, Frank, Jeremy, and let's go with Jesse Garasha. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, good. Did that crackle? Do I sound okay?
You sound good.
Yeah.
Did Kojiko sort out your internet finally?
Yeah.
Yeah, we changed the time of day. Clearly someone in your neighborhood is downloading a lot of illegal video games.
They're uploading a lot of video game clips onto YouTube, I bet.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Frank Howley, speaking of uploading video clips, you have new internet as well because you're in your new digs.
Yeah, I moved. I'm in Orange County. It's all right.
His camera just fell over there is no video version of this podcast, but it just looked like Frank had an earthquake and now we're staring at a Steam Deck, I think that is.
God, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, not a Steam Deck. What's that thing called?
Stream Deck.
Stream Deck.
You were close.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, apart from your webcam not being properly connected to your monitor, how's your new digs?
No, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm all moved in. I feel 90% moved. The internet is fantastic here, which I'm really happy. I've been like stress testing it. I downloaded Warzone in like 15 minutes, and that's like a 90 gigabyte game. So I'm happy. I'm happy.
What a world we live in, eh? Jeremy Jane?
Hello.
How's your internet up there in Sebastopol?
Oh, it's stable. They've been working on the lines outside, so the electricity has been flickering off and on, but somehow it has never interrupted my computer's functionality or my internet. So
okay, so your place is haunted.
It's just like a shitty rave is happening every couple hours.
We talked earlier this morning, and you thought you might have had an earthquake. Have you figured out whether it was an earthquake or not?
I didn't do any further research, but my windows were rattling about 7:45, and there was an earthquake at the exact moment that was happening, like in Lake County, which is kind of far away. It was a small one. It might just be a weird coincidence, but who knows?
Was it an earthquake, or was it just everyone in Lake County having meth at the same time?
Yeah, it was. They were all lighting up at the exact same moment.
Sorry to our Lake County listeners. This is just some typical. What county are you in again?
Sonoma
County.
Sorry to Kyle in Lake County. If you're listening, we love you.
Fuck Kyle. It's Mendocino County's okay. We don't like Lake County though. We're just surrounding them.
Nah, dude. The Kyle heads on the pod are uniting.
Dude, I've been trying to get in contact with people. We've been doing a lot of talking to developers in the past couple of weeks, and one of the things that keeps coming up is that there was a bunch of game devs in Novato, and I'm kind of looking at moving up to Novato. Novato is like in the North Bay here in the Bay Area, and there's loads of studios that were up there at different times. It's really weird. So I put a shout out yesterday on Twitter to be like, hey, who's in Novato? Because I know 2K, like Mafia 3 was made there. Toys for Bob, I think, are there. There's a bunch of stuff. I think Epic might have started a studio. I'm not sure. But we're busy here over at Noclip. We're doing lots of madness. But before we get into that, housekeeping shenanigans, we're going to talk about all the games we played. We've got 2 weeks worth of games to talk about. But before that, if you'd like to support this 100% ad-free podcast, fund our documentaries and get access to a bunch of bonuses, including videos, bonus podcasts like last week's Doom review, Discord access, and loads more, you can head over to patreon.com/noclip. And shout out to all of our beautiful, bountiful Battle Pass holders: Cody, Krieger, Aaron, L. White, Forrest Pruitt, Cameron Ladd, George. I'm gonna learn how to say this beautifully and fast in future. George Circotis, that we think?
Yeah, it's like music.
Okay.
It's a beautiful name.
Circadian rhythm. And of course, Tori Tiliev, who has been with us since the damn start. We almost met Tohir in New York when we were doing the ESRB documentary.
Yeah.
We had a little meetup in New York, and he couldn't make it in the end. He had a family commitment, but massive shout out to all of our patrons and to all of you listening. All right. 2 weeks of video games. I was surprised because I thought, it's kind of like the start of, late spring, early summer, especially before E3, unless The Last of Us gets released. nothing. It traditionally has kind of been a place where you don't release a game because the studios are so busy. But there's loads of stuff that we have written down here. Do you mind if I indulge because the first game on both myself and Frank, and for some reason we're the first two names down here, we have the same game, and I've been dying to talk about it. Can we talk about Nightmare of Decay? Okay, Frank, you go first of all. Explain this game to people and why it's so awesome, because I just ate this thing up.
So Nightmare of Decay is a delicious retro throwback to, I would say, Resident Evil 1 with hints of other Resident Evil series, but it's a, like I would say, stripped down, lean and mean, fun first-person take on Resident Evil 1. You're entering a spooky mansion, you're solving puzzles, you're engaging in combat, it's survival horror, collecting stuff, but there's a few little combat surprises that even reminds me of Resident Evil 4 stuff. But it's awesome, and they nail it. Like, it's not too cheeky, it's not too winky, it's just like, this game feels awesome.
So it's available on Steam it's right there, it's $5. Which I think I might have gotten it for like $2 or $3. I think it was cheaper. And so many people were buying it. I bought this game and I was like, oh, it got I think it was G-Man Lives or somebody tweeted about it, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. I'll see what it is. And I was like, oh, $3, sure. I'll give this a whirl. And I completed it in 2 nights. It was so good, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I think it was 2-hour playtime, but I think that didn't include all the times I died and had to go back. So
yeah,
like maybe 3 hours. 100% worth the asking price. It was so well done. It's yeah, like you said, it's very Resident Evil 1. Like the game takes place in a mansion, which is like you walk in and there are 2 doors at the bottom, 2 doors at the top. Like it is basically the Resident Evil 1 mansion. But yeah, first person. But it's all about like ammo conservation, really spooky and freaky. Like nailed that whole aspect of it like so well. Like lots of freaky weird stuff happens in it. It keeps having good new ideas. Like a lot of the whole like you have to get the right key for the right lock. There's like so much stuff lifted out. Like there's, you know, the knights. There's that room with the knights, and you have to have them rotate the right way. Like there's a version of that in here. Like, but it's not derivative. I think it's super smart. And like you said, I don't know how to explain the visuals. It's kind of like it's like a lot of games. It's like Gloomwood and some other games that are sort of this lo-fi first person, like throwback to sort of like Quake era. But it also has like almost a PlayStation 1 style thing going on, filter or something, you know what I mean?
Is it called dithering or something, where it's like the textures kind of like almost vibrate depending on your perspective? I don't know the technological term.
I wonder if they used the there's a shader that is used for the haunted PlayStation PSX collection, and they have like a haunted PSX render pipeline for Unity.
Okay,
a lot of the indie horror games use it. In fact, I've been using it in my own project for a non-horror thing. But it has a million different post-processing effects in the stack, but among them are dithering. It has the geometry thing that Frank was saying, where like the textures kind of do that flicker thing, and then a bunch of different stuff like that. So I'll check while you guys are talking actually and see if it looks like that.
Yeah, have a look at the Steam page. Yeah, I mean, what I love about it, I'm just on the Steam page now, and the trailer for it has like the first zombie you meet has the look over the left shoulder thing from the start of Resident Evil 1. Like it's really it's doing a lot of that. Jesse, have you played this? I've seen that you nodded. Okay, sorry. What did you make of it? I didn't realize you had. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, how dare you not look at my Steam? What are you doing?
You have a lot of games on your list, so
I have a lot of crap there, including a book. So don't worry about it. Yeah, I played Nightmare of Decay, probably in the same way that you did, over 2 nights, handful of hours, maybe 3-4 hours, because I'm bad at playing those kinds of games. And I really enjoyed it myself. I think like the thing that I really liked about Resident Evil 1 when I played the remake is the puzzles that they have in there and how kind of like bizarre they feel. Like this wouldn't exist in a 1970s mansion. Like right. You're playing an escape room thing. Like one of the puzzles in this game is like a coin plaque that you have to put coins in the right order. And like, right. How does that even work? Right. It's magic, but you buy it because that's the feeling of Resident Evil. It is a little magical like that. And I just like how it evokes that feeling. The sound effects are really cool. I like fighting the zombies and stuff. I also like that it didn't have voice acting.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it did when I look back on it, but I know that it didn't because it was just like Animal Crossing grunts to get across the tone of each of the characters talking.
God, that's a good point. Yeah, like all the exposition, and there is exposition.
Yeah,
like
there
in
is.
the end, I felt like I had a good idea of what had happened, but it's all just like finding notes. And I guess sometimes you interact with something and a piece of text comes up telling you like, oh, it doesn't fit here or something like that, or gives you a little bit of insight. But though, yeah, the mansion itself and the various aspects of it in and outside of it kind of tell that story, I guess. You know, you find parts of it that are hidden initially, and yeah, there's a lot of like spooky nonsense. There's a lot of freak. There's one part where they do spook. It does freaky well, and it also does like spooky well. And the combat stuff is great because like, you get a shotgun, which is like really good, but just disastrously inaccurate. So you have to like really wait until someone's up on you, or like make the crosshair takes forever to tighten. So you're just like holding it there. But there was one part that like really made me shiver where I was in a room where maybe some bad stuff happened. And did you see the reflection in the mirror?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. It said, I stopped. I stopped and the shivers just went all the way up my back. I like froze. It was like, oh, I didn't need to see that. It was so subtle. It's such a subtle effect, but it was just done so well. Yeah.
I like your contrast there between spooky and scary. Like there is a distinction there. There are some like Halloween-y moments in this game, especially closer to the end. Some of the bosses that you have to fight.
Kind of, yeah, right?
Yeah. The ways that you kill some of them are like just hilarious. It's such a funny setup, and then they explode into meat chunks. It's great. I don't know. I love the whole thing. It was awesome.
Yeah, really great. Like, didn't overstay its welcome. Didn't repeat many puzzles. Like, everything felt fresh the whole way through. The combat was fun throughout. I never really got lost in it. It just was, yeah, like I've nothing bad to say about this game. I have loads of things that I loved about it. And it's really difficult to not recommend a game that you've enjoyed for 2 hours that cost less than a sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, it's so good. I think it's I was thinking about like my games of the year this year, and I was like, oh, this is definitely in the top 10 so far, like easy, and it cost me nothing. I was like, yeah.
I really like I'm glad to see more people doing kind of like short digestible games that are, you know, like $3, $5, $10. Like Iron Lung is one that comes to mind and stuff, but it's also cool to see Nightmare of Decay kind of, I mean, it's still horror, but it's getting outside of the like puppet combo, like horror walking simulator thing, which is, I feel like a lot of those shorter games are just like, you're in the spooky house and the spooky people are going to find you. And it's cool to see like some more mechanical, like not innovation, but just like some diversity, some variety of mechanics going on in those like short digestible games. Cause it's like, it's really satisfying to just play a game for 2 hours and be done with it and be like, oh, that was like a movie, you know, like it's a good experience. You have it and then you move on with your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Another indie game with overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam is Citizen Sleeper.
Yes.
And I know Jesse and Jeremy have played a bunch of it. Jeremy, let's let you lead off on this one. Tell us a little bit about Citizen Sleeper.
Okay, so first of all, Citizen Sleeper is probably like 100% in my top games of this year. It will be. It's hard to compare to Elden Ring. That'll be an interesting discussion for Game of the Year talks. But it's a role-playing game inspired by tabletop role-playing games, and it is essentially. And I'm going to keep this super spoiler-free because I want people to go into this as blind as possible. So I'm not going to talk about anything beyond kind of the intro setup and the conceit of it. But essentially, you are sort of a hybrid, like robot human in a dystopian future where people sell their bodies to corporations, and you are on the run from the corporation that now owns your real body, and you are like a hybrid robot person on a space station that you've escaped to. And it is essentially about trying to kind of sever the ties between this corporation that owns you and is actively like tracking you and trying to find you. But it's also like, from that description, it sounds like it could be kind of a Blade Runner-y, like action sci-fi kind of thing, but it is instead a a like beautiful melancholy kind of meditation on finding community and on kind of like the ways that we all sacrifice our health under under capitalism, basically. It is a game that gamifies like medical. I'm not trying to like make it to sound like too highfalutin here. It's just it does things mechanically that emulate feelings of otherization that happen to people in the real world, whether that's like marginalization based on race or disability or like medical conditions. It takes those things and it abstracts them into sci-fi concepts and then makes you deal with them. So the sort of mechanical feel of the game is essentially you roll dice at the beginning of a day. A day is kind of the basic unit. They call them cycles, and in a cycle, you have to make sure you have enough enough money for food. You need to make sure you have a place to stay, and you need to like do some work to get that money. But there's also things you want to do with characters that you meet. So the tension kind of comes between like you roll your dice at the beginning of the day, and so you roll. It's out of 6. So say you roll like a bunch of 2s and 3s. You're not going to be very effective that day. So it's also gamifying the feeling of waking up on a random Tuesday and feeling like shit. And then you're like, oh man, it's going to be like a rough day, but I have to go to work, but I want to see like my friend Joe after work, but I'm not going to have the energy to kind of expend on that because I have to like pay for my sci-fi insulin. So I have to work for that. But it's an incredible game. It's really well written. It was largely developed by one person with support on the music and art from 2 other people. And it is
wow.
Yeah, Jesse, I'm curious to hear what you thought about it because I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I think you just described it perfectly. Like I beat it 2 hours before we recorded this. Jeremy recommended it on Monday. I was like, oh, I'll talk about something else. Maybe I'll have something else to play. And then I barreled through 8 hours of a video game in like 2 days. Didn't even think about it. I did a bunch of stuff yesterday too. I don't know how I invented this extra time to play through this game. Like video games, I think for me to sit down and play something for 8 hours straight, it has to have a through line of like a very strong mechanic that makes me want to sit there and do it forever. Like Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man 2018. I got through that start to finish almost in like 2 days, and that game's pretty long. And it's because I love swinging. I love the action. The story was kind of pretty good, I thought, but for the most part, it was fun. In this case, the writing in this game is so good, is so beautiful and flowery and like just makes you envision something, because this is a visual novel, to be clear. Like, this is just writing. This all you're doing is reading in this game and interacting with the dice to kind of give you resources and stuff. And just the way that they tell these stories and the way that they're written and the ideas that come across in these communications, the friends that you make, the people that you work for, I don't know. I can't spoil anything. I don't want to, because I think it's just something you need to kind of get through yourself and come to your own conclusions on. But yeah, Citizen Sleeper, I think, is definitely up there for me as one of the better games of this year so far. I agree with you entirely, Jeremy.
If you were coming into this just as like somebody who hasn't seen a trailer or something, like what's the closest proxy? Is it like Disco Elysium but without like moving the characters?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like Disco Elysium without the CRPG kind of interface. In fact, it got me thinking a lot about how presentation of a game kind of seeds your expectations for what the game will play like, because in many ways, if you ignore the presentation, this game is mechanically and thematically and tonally very similar to Disco Elysium.
Right.
And in fact, the intro felt like an homage to me. I don't know if that was just coincidence, but it feels...
I agree. Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah. But it's interesting because the fact that there isn't kind of like a hand-painted CRPG world that you're walking around in, it does feel differently. And I think people who are averse to games that are largely text-driven may be turned off by that. But I'm hoping that people kind of push through and try to give it a shot because, I think that it's also a much smaller team than Disco Elysium. It was developed much faster. And so I think that it plays with its minimalism very well. It does this kind of magic trick where, because the prose is so strong, because the characters are so strong, because the setting and themes are so strong, it does a lot of the heavy lifting in your own mind. And so and also the character portraits are fantastic. So
Yeah, the art looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
it is a gorgeous game. But it does the most with the least, where it doesn't have so it has kind of a similar character portrait thing to Persona, where it shows a character and then their dialogue is happening by the side. But in Persona, they'll be like animated, and there's maybe a dozen different versions of the portrait picture for each character based on moods and kind of things like that. There's one static portrait per character, but I didn't find that like a limitation at all. I really think it's a game that it's smart in the way it's constrained because it has a small team, but it is a very dense kind of 8.5 hour experience. It's really beautiful.
Jeremy's right to say about the character portraits, by the way, that like you don't need them to be animating and stuff because, again, the writing is so clear. But there are like a handful of moments where those portraits do change. And when you see them, it smacks you in the face. It is like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it feels so rewarding to see those moments if you get to those points. Yeah, man, I'm going to be thinking about this game for a while. I think it's, super heady, super smart.
Yeah, the last thing I kind of want to say about it is that when we were doing our Game of the Year discussion, I was talking a lot about games that try to do like social role playing, games like Disco Elysium and games like The Forgotten City. And I think that is something that Citizen Sleeper it innovates within that space and does it really well, because those are kind of the experiences. So this leads into the other thing that I wrote on the planning doc for this that I wanted to get into. I was reading about this theory called it's the GNS theory of role playing games, and the idea is
like
that
GNR, just like
yeah, it's the Guns N' Roses theory of role playing games. And so this was a theory that was devised in the 90s by this guy whose name I cannot recall, but you can look up GNS theory.
Axl Rose, I think it was. Axl Ross.
Yeah. Axel Gygax.
That's good.
And so the idea is that there are three. So this is obviously contested, but it's just a theory. There are three types of role-playing game players. There are the gamists, the narrativists, and the simulationists.
Sorry.
I'm a gamist for sure.
Gamist.
Oh my God, are we all gamists?
I think we
Is
might.
that what we are? Next time somebody comes up to me at like a dinner party and asks me, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm just going to say, I'm a gamist.
I'm a gamist, but I dabble in narrativism.
I'm a convicted gamist.
Oh boy,
Yeah, I did 8 years hard time.
that's good.
But
Is your podcast title?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Convicted gamist. So the idea is basically that like it's what people are trying to get out of a role-playing game, and you could argue that these three types of experience are all like components of a sum total kind of RPG experience. But I was interested because even though this is a theory about tabletop, I thought it applies to all video games. And the three styles are gamist, which is like you're a player who wants a successively harder like incremental series of challenges to overcome. The narrativist is someone who wants to be placed into a situation and kind of interact on the pretext of that. So you're the son of the king, and the king was just murdered, and now you need to like go find his killer, and that's kind of your pretext for your operation in this world. And then the simulationist is someone who wants a world that has kind of its own internal rules and logic, and they get to like push buttons and pull levers and see how things react. And obviously there's kind of overlap between those three, but it really got me thinking about how the impact of tabletop on a lot of games like Disco Elysium and Citizen Sleeper is kind of that that narrativist school of tabletop, where it's giving you a world to role play as a character as in a meaningful way, in a way that isn't just like, oh, I'm a bard, so these are the kind of skills I have, but in a way where you're like, I'm like a android whose body is slowly dying on a space station.
That's interesting. I wonder as well, I'm sure it's the case, you know, if it, as any theory, you can sort of interpret it in lots of ways. I certainly feel like in some games I have like almost like Sims like bars for all of those. Like, oh, I like this game because it's a little bit of that. And like maybe some of the most successful games are the ones that sort of, the ones that have mass appeal, like your sort of Witcher 3s or maybe even Elden Ring to a certain extent, are ones that have sort of all of those in them in some way. You know what I mean? Like Elden Ring is it sounds like a gamist game, I guess, but also there is a sort of simulationism aspect to it, and that there's lots of logical consistency with like how a sword moves and how much it hurts and all that sort of stuff and all the different things.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why open world games are so successful and why they're so crammed full of stuff, is because they end up appealing to all three of those groups. Like I feel the same way, Danny. Like sometimes I'll play something like Dying Light because I like the combat and a little bit of the story, or I'll play Breath of the Wild because I love throwing barrels down at stuff and that's really funny.
Yeah, like Witcher 3 has got such like mass appeal, but like I'm sure we all play it differently, you know? Like some people are way into the combat side, some people only care about the story, some people like I play games very weird, I feel like, to lots of people because I play open world games almost like an explorer. Like I care less about the combat. I played World of Warcraft like this. So I played solo and I just went exploring on my own. And I kind of play Elden Ring that way too. Like the combat is almost like a means to an end. So yeah, I wonder if that's the case. Like if you nail enough of these things, then that's why they have that mass appeal. Maybe I don't know. We should talk to some open world people about that or something.
Yeah, get Alex Gygax on here. We can talk to him.
Yeah, I wonder how much. I'd be curious to talk to some of those designers of larger open world games and see how much they've interacted with the world of like tabletop, like thought and like the books on it and stuff. That kind of design, because it does feel, when I was reading about the GNS stuff, it feels like its own kind of world where this was like a theory that someone put forth in like 1992 at some Dungeons and Dragons con or something. But it feels to me like. I'm glad to see more video games kind of taking up the torch in a narrative and world building sense from that, because I've always been interested in tabletop and I've never had a group to play it with, and I feel like there's more games that are kind of meeting that need for me in the last like whatever handful of years.
All right, well, from heady science fiction art games to Frank Howley. Talk to us about King Kong versus Godzilla.
I wanted to talk to Frank so bad about this. Oh my God.
Okay, so yeah.
What is this? I thought I was high when I read this.
I love dumb licensed events. Fortnite, I'm in it every day. They just added RoboCop to Fortnite. That's great. Now, Call of Duty Warzone, a month ago on 420, we were blessed with the Snoop Dogg skin. So now, Snoop Dogg enlisted, but he didn't know what war he was signing up for. Call of Duty Warzone has introduced the Pacific, I think it's called Operation Monarch. You drop down on a tropical island. On one side is Godzilla. On the other side is King Kong. So it's your normal battle royale map. You get your stuff. The circle's going closer and closer. Meanwhile, Godzilla and King Kong are bombarding the island with like lasers and rocks. And you can gain like supply packages if you choose to shoot at King Kong or Godzilla.
Wow.
So it is the most chaotic battle royale you could imagine. Because one thing with Call of Duty is if you shoot, you reveal yourself on the radar. So players can drop in, and if you immediately want to go start shooting King Kong, you're going to alert your whereabouts to everybody else. But also you can just get in the plane and your whole squad can go and just fly around King Kong and keep shooting him, and you're leveling up and getting supply packages. Like, it is the most insane thing I've ever played. The other the other element of it that's extremely fun is, I don't know what mode or setting it is, but the default with it is, as long as one person in your team is alive, your other teammates can keep redeploying. So
cool.
So you're constantly respawning. So it feels like it adds this very like, again, it makes it feel more like team deathmatch. You're constantly jumping in, scavenging for loot, killing people, and then also avoiding laser beams from Godzilla. But I can't believe how fun it is. I never touched Warzone, but I really like it.
Man, when I read that, I was like, okay, I'm not sure how many times Call of Duty has jumped the shark at this stage, but this is clearly the biggest one. But like, the way you talk about this kind of sounds amazing.
Seriously, it's excellent. If you wanted to stream it for the Noclip Twitch at some point, like I can't believe how fun it is. Because like, I have a bunch of friends who are really into Warzone, but it always seemed too serious or too intense. Like, I get very aggressive when I play Call of Duty, and like, it doesn't hit the fun toggle. The Godzilla King Kong element is so silly because like, when the circle is so tiny, you have to avoid other players in the increasing circle. But then again, there's the monsters are also, Godzilla will do his laser blast and just annihilate anything in a direct path. So you have to avoid that. So it's just so chaotic. But you can shoot Godzilla to make him go away. And if your team is the one that makes Godzilla go away, you get extra loot. And again, I love how obnoxious Call of Duty is. Anytime you get XP or loot, your screen just has a million pop-ups of like, so if you're bored in the match as you're running, you can just take pot shots at Godzilla and you've leveled up your gun. You've leveled up Godzilla. And then your Snoop Dogg skin is also leveling up.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh wait, Snoop Dogg is also in effect during all this.
So in Vanguard, you can level up your operators. So when you get Snoop Dogg, you just have your default skin. But at level 10, you unlock Crimson Swag. Which is a red and white trench coat. I just unlocked Royal Flush, which is a full-on purple suit. And I don't.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So now, my friend. So again, what I also love about Warzone is it's cross-compatible with all of your Call of Duty skins. So half my team is Snoop Dogg, the other half is Ghostface from Scream, which was released in Cold War. You can be Judge Dredd. It is just so ridiculous. I really like it.
Hey,
it's
Frank,
so good.
what's Snoop Dogg's kill? Does he have a kill animation name?
Oh man, and I forget.
Snoop
talked
Izzle,
about this
something like
last
that.
time.
It's like Finizzle Fashizzle.
Yeah, that's what
it's
it is.
A pun on finisher. It's like Finizzle Fashizzle. And what he does is he stabs with one hand. He stabs you in the neck with a knife, and the other hand he takes a big hit of his blunt.
It's a cigar, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Oh
what
yeah,
it-
cigar. A cigar.
Full of
Yeah.
weed though.
That's a dream blunt rotation. Is me and the guy that I'm stabbing in the neck.
And
Oh my
Godzilla and
God.
King
And
Kong. They're
Godzilla.
just waiting.
And the other thing I think too is I think this was Operation Monarch, Godzilla vs. King Kong. It was probably supposed to come out a year ago or whenever that movie came out, but because of COVID and stuff delayed. I think all
That's
these
the
licensing
thing.
deals.
Yeah, I was like, why is this coming out now? What the fuck?
Yeah, I think it really was it was supposed to come out a year ago, but then just everything got delayed.
I want them to put me in charge of the licensing of properties so that we can just get increasingly just do a Citizen Kane tie-in and
my
have
God.
Orson Welles as the announcer and just get crazy with it.
This is just I don't know. Maybe the metaverse is all right. Maybe I was wrong. To be skeptical.
When I listen to Frank talk about these things, I feel like you know how people joke oh, if you introduce this to a Victorian child it would kill them. I feel like the Victorian child who's wandered into this conversation is just I'm out of my depth and I'm scared.
Yeah, I just did a video on how weird Facing Worlds is, and now I feel like a fucking skeleton.
Facing Worlds is a terrible map if your priority is things like tactics and balance and esports, but it has something that a lot of maps, some of the best maps ever made, often don't have. It's got character, dumb, unsubtle, obvious character.
Because it's weird that there's 2 towers and sniper rifles, where it's you're playing a game where you're shooting King Kong for XP.
While hitting your blunt as Snoop Dogg.
With Scream Guy, with Ghostface, and fucking Bruce Willis. It's just what is going? Oh my god!
And there's no cohesion because the Pacific map, I think it's supposed to be a World War II map, but nothing I don't know.
God.
There's also because it's I guess on Skull Island or whatever that is. There's dinosaur bones and excavation sites which Snoop Dogg's just running around. There's guns everywhere. I love it.
I love the idea that this is taking place on Iwo Jima or Guadalcanal or something
It's like The Rock, Jack Black, and Godzilla raising the flag.
They're running around in Busan. Whoa, what's going on here? What are you doing, Snoop?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I also did I got tricked like an elementary school kid because you can drop in anywhere, and I was like, what can you drop on King Kong? And my friend Carlos was like, oh yeah, drop on him. If you drop on him, you unlock a secret envelope. So I'm like, okay. So I parachute down and I'm immediately killed. And I was like, are you kidding? How could you?
That's
I felt
amazing.
so betrayed.
It's the press Alt and F4 for rocket launcher.
But it was but in my head, it's this mode is so insane. I bet if you jumped on King Kong, you can pilot him like Ratatouille. I bet it would work.
Ratatouille. Hell yeah, dude.
Can't wait for that Ratatouille skin. All right. King Kong, God, I got to check that out. That sounds like a beautiful nightmare. Someone put their hands up. Who else has got? Jesse, do you have something else to talk about here? I see a lot of games.
I don't know. Trek to Yomi, I guess, briefly.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
Yeah.
What you make of it? I haven't played it yet. I've heard a mixed reception from folks, maybe,
Same.
but yeah, what's the deal?
Yeah, most of the misreception seems to come from the combat. And I think if you go into it expecting... What was I thinking? Ghost of Tsushima. You guys have all played some of that, right? Mostly.
Great game.
Yeah, it's great. I love that game. But the bits before fights where you have those like samurai showdown kind of things, and you have to deflect the enemy attacks and then kind of do a swift thing and get the other people. That's what the combat in this game feels like when you get really good at it. And it takes a little while to get good at. You have to learn the timings, you have to learn how to attack and what combos work, how to work with the stagger system that they have set up, which is a little like not straightforward. But once you get it, you feel like a god. You just feel like you're just knocking people out without even thinking about it.
What is the sort of general thing you're doing in the game? Because is it that?
Pretty much. You're pretty much just doing combat. There are some small moments where you use the combat system to solve like puzzles, sort of. Like,
is it like a 3D action game? Is it open world? Like,
yeah,
what are we?
So Trek to Yomi is a 2.5D. Not a platformer because you're not jumping really. 2.5D combat side scroller. There we go. But you also have moments where you kind of can explore little areas. It's hard to describe. Basically, it's just, what if somebody made an Akira Kurosawa movie into a video game? And I think they actually really nailed that aesthetic. It looks really good. It's not just black and white samurai stuff. They do like the spotlight stuff that Kurosawa does a lot, where you've got like spotlights from the sky highlighting stuff in the distance to really sell the look and everything. The framing's really nice. It's very the cinematography is really good. It got me really excited to play the game. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think if you can approach the combat in the right way, it's going to be something that you'll fly through like I did.
Okay, yeah, I can see. I'm watching the trailer. It does seem kind of hard to nail down what it is, because like to say it's like 2D like a Shinobi is reductive, but it's also not like you've got that much control. You're kind of going left and right. Is that like predominantly?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It looks like an art house beat 'em up. This looks
yes.
Yeah, the aesthetic is really impressive. I haven't played it, but I watched a couple videos just to check it out. Because I also heard people complaining about some of the mechanical stuff, but I was wondering if that was just kind of like, if a game tries something innovative with its combat, sometimes it takes a minute for people to get used to it, and then they get into the flow. Yeah. But aesthetically, it's like drop dead gorgeous.
The other game that just came out recently is was it Sifu?
Sifu,
I don't know how to pronounce
Sifu, yeah.
Sifu. But that was another game I clicked with really well, but the difficulty was really hard. But they just released like an easy mode patch that I want to go back and play.
Nice. Awesome.
But yeah, like I love beat 'em ups and even hack and slash games. So I think I'm gonna check this game out. This looks really cool. I saw you post tweets and screenshots about it. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this?
It's gorgeous. It's so much fun. You'll really like it if you like 2D side scrolls. It's a little repetitive, but it's only repetitive once you learn how to really like nail the combat. And it's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at the point that it gets repetitive anyways.
Awesome.
Everybody's making these Akira Kurosawa movies. I'm waiting for the Yasuhiro Otsu movie where I'm like an estranged grandparent who comes to Tokyo to visit their children, and we have a tense relationship.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Somebody make a police story movie.
Oh, that would be so good.
That would be really good.
I feel like John Woo's Stranglehold is pretty as close.
Yeah.
In terms of like throwing yourself
Sleeping
around.
Dogs kind of a little bit.
Sleeping Dogs,
Yeah.
It's like those two. They're in between.
Yeah, somewhere.
There's
in there.
also Jackie Chan Stuntmaster on PS1.
That never happened.
Most attention. If I find out that you're loafing around at that cafe again, stuffing your face,
Don't worry, grandfather. I'm on my way.
Man, all the classics out there we could do documentaries on. You also read Reggie's book, which I remember
I didn't
months
read
ago.
Reggie's book, by the way. Sorry,
You
go on.
didn't?
No, I audiobooked it. Reggie read it to me.
Oh, does he do his own audio book
He
on
did.
it?
Yeah, it's actually
Okay.
really cool.
Months ago, we were talking about getting guests on. You were like, we can get Reggie on. And I was like, reaching out to people and didn't hear back. And now he was on every podcast 2 weeks ago. Did you see that? I was
Yeah,
so
you
annoyed.
hear that,
Oh,
Reginald?
come on,
You
Reggie.
hear that?
I
You're
was
going to
like,
go on
come
X-Play.
on.
You're going to go on G4. You're not going to come on the Noclip podcast.
Oh my God.
Step your game
Anyway,
up, dude. I've heard
we'll
you
get
talk
him.
for 8 hours. We'll get him one day.
We'll get him one day. We'll talk about Pizza Hut and all that good stuff. What was the book like?
So it's an autobiography about an executive for sales. It is not a book about a game developer. It is not a book about a guy who ran Nintendo. It's a book about a guy who did a bunch of other things and then he worked for Nintendo. It opens with a story of him going to Satoru Iwata's funeral and
Right.
like hanging out with him in his last days and stuff. And it's really sad, but like also gives you a good window into the kind of person that he is and the way that he handles challenges in his life. outside of working in sales and stuff, just his approach to taking things seriously and making sure that he's available for people that need him and stuff. It goes through his whole life, his time at Procter & Gamble, his time at working with Crisco brand, whatever, Pizza Hut and all that, VH1 for a little bit, which I didn't know the people who did the web games for VH1 were, he worked with Vicarious Visions on that. I had no idea. Yeah,
funny.
no, I had no idea about that. And it goes through so many things and like a bunch of things that he made the calls on for Nintendo. I mean, it's an autobiography. Maybe he's trying to make himself sound better than he actually is. But there's one point where he talks about Wii Sports, and they didn't want to bundle that with the Wii. He told them to do that.
They didn't everywhere either, right?
Yeah, I know. But in America, he like got them to do that. And
was it bundled here? It was in Europe. It wasn't in Japan. I wasn't sure. Was it bundled? I feel like in the USA it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Canada.
It was bundled
Frank,
in
do you remember?
Canada.
Do you remember? Was Wii Sports with the Wii?
Yes.
In the US, it was.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because NOA is Canada, America, Mexico, I think, and maybe other.
Right. So it's usually the same, is it?
Typically, yeah. Yeah, but it's a really interesting story. He like presents it in this way where he's telling a story about his life, something that was really pivotal to his learning, and then he actually like explains why it might be useful to you if you're someone that wants to get into business or a leadership role or work for someone in a position in a board or something. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was really insightful. There was one story he told about being at E3 that I thought was like, I was waiting to hear something like this because I knew it was going to happen at some point. But he's telling a story about E3 2004 when he does his whole, my name's Reggie, I'm here to kick ass and take names, and we're about making games.
My name is Reggie, I'm about kicking ass, I'm about taking names, and we're about making games.
But before he went up, he was behind stage without his badge on, and he's just standing around, 6'4", whatever, black dude standing backstage at a gaming event. Someone was afraid that he was going to kick them out because they thought he was security. And at the time, yeah, which is funny, and he laughed at it. But he makes a point in the book that, like, at the time he laughed it off, but in retrospect, it kind of is a bad sign that the games industry people saw just a black dude backstage wearing a suit and thought it was security and didn't think it was an executive. And I was
not
like,
an executive.
Damn.
Yeah.
Brutal.
And I wonder, maybe he gets into it in the book, but I wonder if by the time he retires, like 15 years later, is it any different? Like,
yeah. I don't know, man. There's an interview at the end with Jeff Keighley, and I'm very interested to hear that. It's exclusive to the audiobook as well, so you should get it on audible.com.
Excellent. Yes, Jeff Keighley, a friend of Noclip, interviewee on Noclip many times as well. That's cool. That's awesome. I'm excited to actually maybe do the audiobook of that. That sounds neat. The business aspect of running Noclip is something that I don't often get to like indulge a bit, so maybe there'll be something neat there as well.
Totally.
But I'm terrible at reading, which is why I bounced off Citizen Sleeper. I'm bad at reading. It's a me problem. It's not you, Reggie.
I will voice act Citizen Sleeper to you as you play it. I'll stand behind you and read it, and I'll do the voices too. Like I'll do voices for each character.
It's a lot of voices, dude.
It makes me want to play it much less.
Yeah. Well, no, it's gonna be good.
Okay. It sounds terrifying.
No, it's gonna be very immersive and very professional.
Could you do that? This could be like the way you can like there's like you can in Japan you can like rent a man to just like come and hug you or have dinner with you and stuff like that. I remember I'm sure women as well, but I remember reading about an article about this thing. I wonder if Jeremy, you might have a side hustle and just like doing voice work for Luddites like me who aren't able to read properly.
That's you're making it sound like a charity where I come and read to Reading Averse gamers instead of like sitting by their bedside with a laptop open.
I'm a Reading Averse gamist.
Yeah.
And I need help. Yeah, I'm putting on Reading Averse gamist on Craigslist, North Bay, and see if you'll hit me up.
Be murdered in a week.
Going through the list here, the last thing I see is Frank has Resident Evil down here. Was that because of Nightmare of Decay, or did you actually go play Resident Evil?
Yeah, so Nightmare of Decay, like I've been wanting to revisit some of the Resident Evil games. The primary reason was like a few months ago, the Resident Evil 4 HD project was released.
Oh yeah.
So this is something kind of like Black Mesa, where this is a mod that was announced forever ago, finally came out.
As VR as well, doesn't it? Or is that the official one?
I think there's an official Resident Evil 4 VR thing.
Yeah, I've never played that.
But yeah, HD project is entirely fan-made, free, like 40 gigabyte texture pack that you download. I think it's all 4K textures. And what it was, I think the original story was the person who started this mod, I think they live in Spain or somewhere in Europe, and they noticed that they noticed that like the bricks and textures just in their hometown were identical to the ones that Capcom researched for their levels. So they're like, wait a minute. And then their mind started spinning like, what if we just took pictures of everyone in my town and retextured the game? And then he got more people to help over the years. I downloaded it and it looks gorgeous because Resident Evil 4 has been ported on every single platform. I think Capcom announced or teased they're doing another remake of it. But it's like, Capcom with Resident Evil is insane. It looks incredible, and so I treated myself to replaying Resident Evil 4 over the past few weeks because it's been a while since I revisited it. This was the perfect excuse to go through. Yeah, every time you visit that game, it really is one of the best games of all time. I recommend this HD project. It's a really cool, it's like, it really is like 4K. It looks so good.
Wow. So this is the PC version? You just you buy it off Steam, is it? And then
so you can buy like the Capcom's Resident Evil 4 HD, and then there's a few patches you got to do, and then it's up and running in this new crazy HD project. And then there's another fan patch that makes everything 60 frames, etc. But it was fun to go through that. But the other thing, so Nightmare of Decay came out. I was like, okay, I want to play Resident Evil 4. But the other thing that came out a few months ago was Alex Aniel, who goes by CVX Freak on GameFAQs. He wrote a book called it's called Itchy Tasty, like the unofficial history of Resident Evil.
Very cool.
And it is an excellent book, game by game. He was able to speak with everyone, like Hideki Kamiya, Shinji Mikami, all the producers, even like the original voice actors for the games, and it's just an oral history of every single Resident Evil game, even all the crazy like portable games like the Resident Evil Gaiden, the Game.com port, which no one at Capcom has any idea how that happened. Like everyone's like, I don't know who made that. Like they don't even know. Like he wasn't able to track down who actually was responsible for that port. They talk about Resident Evil 1.5, how Kamiya and Mikami had to like reboot that game from scratch and divert. It is really, really well made, and Resident Evil is like that, and Tony Hawk is my favorite game series of all time. Right. So this is so juicy, and going into it, I thought like I already know the story, I know everything, but these candid interviews he gets and is able to write the story as a cohesive timeline is excellent. So I strongly recommend it to any fan of Resident Evil survival horror because it's just jam-packed full of great anecdotes.
That's neat, yeah. Itchy Tasty, an unofficial history of Resident Evil, available where books are sold.
That sounds really good. Speaking of Resident Evil, Frank, you've probably heard about this, but there was a fan project to make Resident Evil Outbreak playable. Like you can emulate it and then play it amongst a bunch of PCs. That might be a fun thing for Noclip to stream sometime.
Yes, I have a friend who's an incredible tech dude. His name is Nick. He sent me a Google Drive that has everything playable. I don't know if I have to update the server stuff, but I have access to that. So Resident Evil Outbreak 1, I don't know if it's 2 also, but we do have access to those files if we want to try that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I looked at it briefly, and it looks like a little complex to set up, but for anyone who doesn't know Resident Evil Outbreak, it's the multiplayer-only online Resident Evil game where you, instead of being like the hero cop, most of the characters are like a waitress at a coffee shop, or like there's like one who's a security guard and one who's a cop, and I think they're the only two who start with guns. But I was fascinated by this game because it doesn't have voice chat. I think it has like pre-recorded voice lines or something for communication, but it is I've never completed. I think I completed one mission in it ever. And
it's hard as nails.
It's impossible. And people, this was like, it was a PS2 game, right?
Yeah.
So people keep like dropping out. Like the network connectivity was like had a bunch of issues. So
yeah, the AI bots are completely like awful. Yeah. The only way I was able to play it is I would go on GameFAQs, and it was just like Craigslist. It was like, hey, I'm starting a game. Here's my Ventrilo server. So I was like a 12-year-old kid. I used my crappy SOCOM USB mic, and I would just get carried by these like Resident Evil tryhards, and maybe it was like the same 12 people. I don't remember, right. But it was really fun. But yeah, that was like it was like a very specific summer where that online multiplayer community was active, and then it disappeared. And it's such a cool game, and Capcom's never like recreated or remastered it. But I'm happy there's this now PC. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I think through PS2 emulation also. But yeah, I want to check that out.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I thought of you when I saw it.
Man, it's cool. Yeah, Resident Evil seems to be one of those communities that just like they've always had a fairly good preservationist history. Something about the game, maybe the depth of the lore, or the mystery around it, or whatever.
Or how things don't die in it.
That's really cool.
You got to keep them alive.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can share one embarrassing Resident Evil anecdote from my childhood, I was on a Resident Evil RP forum, like a role playing forum.
Yeah.
And it was like I was like one of those kids who was like 14 and obsessed with zombies.
Dude, what was it called? Because I feel like I was too. I feel
God,
like one of
off
my
the top of my
friends-
head, I have no idea. I'll have to look it up for the next pod.
Okay.
But it was essentially like you design a character and then everyone just kind of, there's no like DM, but everyone just kind of like collectively, you know, like make sure someone isn't like, I jump in the air and shoot all the zombies 100 times. And then you're like, all right, come on, dude. But you would have like an inventory and ammo, and the game would just progress whenever anyone posted. So you'd just be like, I walk into the police station and I like look in the dresser drawer, and then someone would be like, you find a box of air. It was the most like, I don't know. It was like such a proto like hyper nerd thing to do. But yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of dovetails into me talking about wanting to do tabletop. I just was like searching for a way to role play with people.
What did this look like? Was it like top down? You're looking at like a...
No, it was just text.
It's just text. Okay, somebody needs to, maybe someone who can email in, podcast@noclip.video. There was a website, there was a web game that was like top down, that was in like a persistent world. There was other players in it, and it was a zombie survival game. I think maybe you only had a couple turns a day or something like that. You had to like go find somewhere to sleep that night and then come back the next day and see if it was okay. I'm trying to go, I can't find it. But it was big. I remember it was like a thing. Like people were playing it back in like 1998, 99.
Sounds awesome. That's before like that's like during the zombie explosion, before it was like such a thing. In fact, I there was an article that came up recently that when they were developing Left 4 Dead, I guess Gabe was very critical of them putting zombies in it, because he was like, they're apparently at that point he's like, they're already kind of overdone, and was like, what are we doing here? Like, is there like a Romero kind of like metaphor going on with the zombies or anything, or is it just, are we just doing this because it's like,
well, it was the 28 days later fast zombie thing that kicked it all off again, where suddenly people were like, oh wait, you can do fast, and then we had this other wave of zombie stuff, whereas like Resident Evil and all those were in the sort of old Romero style lumbering, you know, slow terror. But yeah, if you remember what that is, please podcast at noclip.video. I have a friend, but I went to school with a guy called Richie Nugent, who was a huge Resident Evil fan and would do lots of fan art and all this sort of stuff. And there was a small window where there was an official Irish PlayStation magazine. So there was one in the UK, but they had an Irish spin-off, which I think only lasted for maybe a year or so. But they like came and interviewed him, and he was like in the magazine, like him and his art and all this sort of stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was like the coolest thing ever. It was like amazing to see. Yeah, I'm sure he's not listening, but shout out to Richie. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. Speaking of emails, we've got a bunch of emails here. Do you mind if I dole some of these out a little bit?
Up.
yeah.
All right, I'll do the first one. It's from Jesse, but not Jesse Grash. I hope not anyway. Yeah, send those in. Not that I don't love getting emails from you, Jesse, but it'd just be a little bit depressing.
Yeah, you could just say it to us on the podcast. Yeah.
This is one of the first weeks where we've had like so many emails that I've had to like actually pick ones instead of just reading out everything we got. So
everyone.
Thank you to everyone for sending them in. So we got a lot of emails about the car video game, Rogue Rash style thing. And I actually met Alex Austin yesterday briefly. We just had some grub and talked about the game a little bit. So we'll have updates on that in the next couple of weeks. But this one comes in from Jesse. He says, hello, I really enjoyed your conversation on unique racing game ideas. I like some simulation racers, but much prefer arcade racers, which we don't see much of these days. First, Stunts was amazing back in the day, and I'd love to see a remastered version. I'll just break out of email for a second. That made me laugh because that's basically what Alex is doing for us right now. Is he's just making a remake of Stunts or Stunt Car Racer, depending on what you played it on. Or they're different games, but one was made by Jeff Crammond and one was sort of inspired by it. So that's good to hear. Anyway, back to Jesse. Remastered version or spiritual successor to it, complete with an easy-to-use track editor. If nothing else, Stunts needs to be made playable on modern PCs. Road Rash was also amazing, and there is a spiritual successor to the series called Road Redemption, which was a Kickstarter project several years ago. I love this game too. Road Redemption also had Boss Biker. I don't know what that is. Is that just a boss you fight on a bike? I like that. I like the idea of a driving game that isn't just focused on finishing first. I'd like to see a combination of Road Rash, Redemption, Burnout 3, Stunts, and Carmageddon. It could be a driving battle royale in one mode where you wreck into or kill other drivers like Road Rash and Carmageddon. Onrush was a decent game. Yeah, I forgot about that. That kind of focused on takedowns rather than just racing to finish first. I absolutely love the takedowns of Burnout 3 and need more games that use that mechanic. Personally, I much prefer a circuit or checkpoint section race than open world. There's something great about these fixed track arcade racers. Just a thought. Love the podcast and documentaries. Funny how, there's so much well-trodden ground in racing, but still, it's hard to make them stick, these ideas. Like even Onrush was really trying something new, and it just seemed like it didn't grab enough people's attention or something. Kind of came and went pretty quick.
Or Blur. What is it?
Split Second?
Yeah,
Split Second was awesome. Split Second was great. It was just like driving through a fucking Roland Emmerich movie. It was nonsense. Like everything was exploding all the time. Yeah, and Blur was like a adult Mario Kart style thing.
There was a San Francisco Driver, which has the weirdest mechanic of any video game ever, where I think you're driving your car, and then at any point you're a ghost. You're a ghost.
You're in a coma.
Yeah.
So you are this is technically just your consciousness is creating this entire world. But sorry, do go on.
Yeah, your ghost or whatever possesses other cars, so you can leap out of your car to possess another car, and then you could just keep going forward and forward. Or if you crash, you jump out and possess another car. I think there's a story mode too. I can't remember. I just remember I played that game over a period of like 48 hours and beat it, and I was addicted to it. It was so fun and weird.
Driver San Francisco is up there with like most weird and good remake of a game, because it is like, aside from you driving like classic looking cars in San Francisco, I guess it has very little to do with the original Driver, which had a San Francisco level, but it wasn't it was in Miami as well, and I think the first level was Miami, and then San Francisco and somewhere else, New York probably. Man, yeah, Driver San Francisco. I forgot about the possession. Frank, do you want to take this next email from Sam?
Yeah. Hi, folks. Love the Docs and Pod. Keep doing what you're doing. One for the dev chat. I'm a massive fan of the Mario and Luigi series. Obviously, they skew a bit on the easy side these days, but Superstar Saga on the GBA was one of my favorites growing up. It has a really nice timing system where you're rewarded for hitting the button prompts along with the characters, for both your hero attacks and when defending the enemy attacks. It's a nice way of adding to the staple turn-based battle system and making you feel a bit more engaged. There was a series of special moves, bros moves, because of course, that evolved over the game too. Cheers.
Any of you played that?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse, because I've only kind of like dabbled on emulators with these games.
Oh, dude, the Mario RPG series in general, like Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, the first one, Thousand Year Door, I haven't played too much of, but the Superstar Saga games, Paper Jam, Bowser's Inside Story, all those games are really, really cool. And I do really love that mechanic of like there being an interaction step involved with the turn-based combat, because you're not just hitting attack and then you're attacking. You're attacking and then you're still timing your attack, or they're attacking you and you have to know how to time it. And it changes on the different enemies and on the different attacks that you're doing. So if you're getting hit by a fireball, it might be a little more delayed. So you can't just muscle memory your way through every fight, but you are sort of asked to learn how to do it better, and like how to get better at just thinking when you are pretty sure the attack is going to come, and learn that kind of stuff. I think that's a really great addition to any RPG that has that sort of thing. I love it.
Yeah, because Super Mario RPG had, it wasn't quite as complex as that or involved, and it didn't change per battle, but it had a kind of like a timing-based crit kind of thing, where like
Yeah.
you would have to learn the animations of the attacks of both enemies and your player characters, and hit A at the right time to either do a crit attack or to like ball up and do a little defense. And then the Mario and Luigi series and Paper Mario are both kind of the like two series that come out of the legacy of Super Mario RPG. So I'll have to play those at some point, because Super Mario RPG is like one of my favorite games of all time.
You would love Thousand Year Door. That game is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only one. That was the first one. That was the GameCube one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the first one of those that I played. And the one I probably enjoyed the most since playing the other Paper Marios. It's pretty dope, pretty special. I cannot have you say Super Mario RPG without Nirvana.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
The show. It's just it's real hard. I know. Don't.
Sorry.
Don't get him started.
Jesse, do you want to take this one from Graham?
Sure. Really like the sound of Rogue Rash. I also really love the sound of that name. My main idea for it would be procedurally generated tracks. I like the idea of not being able to steer when using your weapon, but if you know precisely where the turns are, then you know exactly when you can and can't use your weapon. If the straights come randomly and are of random length, then you create a game of chicken of who dares to gamble and use their weapon, and will that pay off? Crash or you're hit and you're out of the race. Combine that with the online play with good numbers on a track, then I think that would be great. I think you would either need to have it as a 5-minute track. I would probably add some rubber banding, as the person in the lead would not get stuck in a melee and could likely get further into the lead. Or you could make it a sort of battle royale like the recent Super Mario... What? SMB? Is that something else?
I don't know. I thought Super Mario Brothers too, but
Yeah.
I'm imagining it's like super mad bikers.
The recent SMB game did, where you can send enemies or traps onto the track in front or other players, and then it's last one standing. Both sound fun to me personally. SMB.
Maybe Mario. It could be Mario Kart reference.
Super Mario Bart? Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I do like that idea, though. I think that plays into some of the design talk we were having about the racer, where knowing the turns of the track is kind of like the meta game, and then what you do within that is kind of the like moment to moment experience of it. So anticipating that like a big turn is coming up, you're like, all right, if I can sneak in a hit right here, then I can like pull ahead on the turn, because I obviously won't be able to, be swinging a pipe at someone's tires on the big turn or whatever. That's a good idea.
It's funny. I wonder if people, because I play a lot of racing games where I'm like racing on circuits, so I'm memorizing circuits and I'm memorizing like the memorizing the turns is one thing, but like, more so is like braking points and like how much acceleration you should take out at the start of the race and at the end of the race when your tires are a little bit warmer, or if it rains and that sort of stuff. But when I'm playing arcade racers, I don't think about any of that stuff. It just doesn't even come into it. So I wonder how you teach that. You know what I mean? Like having a sort of having the design lead the player. Like if you have an idea for a concept that requires the player to approach it via a certain way, I wonder, is that tricky, because then you have to like figure out how to teach them the thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, when you're playing Mario Kart, I'm only ever thinking Mario Kart is a very like present game. You know what I mean? You're only ever thinking about what is in front of you right now.
You could do it by doing like a framing device. Like imagine there was an announcer who's like, welcome to Rogue Rash. Like today's track is like the fearsome whatever track. And then maybe shows like a quick, before the race, like a quick camera shot of like the treacherous like big turn or whatever that comes up first. And then, like a kind of like little cinematic preview of the track like you'd get if you were watching a racing event. And then it seeds the idea of those milestones or something.
Yeah, I wonder if it, because I remember in video you have to like tell people something 3 times before it sticks. I wonder in game design, I have no idea like how many times you have to tell something, especially if it's a learned thing they already think they know. You know what I mean? Like when I play a racing game, I assume I know how to play a racing game. I don't try and rethink it.
To me, the track stuff like that is kind of the meta. Like that's the thing that emerges. Like the first maybe 3 races you do, that's not occurring to you at all. You're just trying to get the ground under you. But then that's the kind of thing that emerges as you shift from beginner into intermediate play, maybe.
Yeah.
Like it gives it another layer to expand the like skill floor or whatever.
I'd love to see like procedural destruction stuff on a map like that, where like the road explodes in a different way and like gives you a different path to go down in the middle of the race. That I could see that changing things up fun.
Split second, baby. Let's
go back.
Exactly.
Bring it back.
This next one I'll take from Dr. Hanky, who says, here's my idea, drunk racer. That's right, you have to race, but the score is based on how drunk you are. Like if you're second place, but you're more drunk than the one who got in first, you still win. But as you're drunk, it's almost impossible to drive. So you have to somehow balance this out. But here's the twist. You can also throw your beer bottles to another driver. Now they become drunk, or maybe they become drunk too quickly and then they can't finish the race proper. So now you're driving ahead, not as drunk, but you can chug your beers right before the finish and I hope you make it. Of course, everyone else is either chugging beers or throwing them at other people and it becomes total chaos. Who'll win? Who knows?
ESRB is not signing off on that one.
I was
No
just
way.
about to say this is going to be the first adults only like kart racer.
I was on Irish radio once because of the drink driving in Grand Theft Auto 4.
Oh, really?
Which, if you drunk in that game, it was obviously, you're like flopping all over the place. But there was a famous, one of the levels was you went on a date with the Irish American girl, I forget her name, to like an Irish bar. That actually, I've been to the real version of that in Queens. Myself and Austin Walker had some beers there years ago. It was the last video I ever did for GameSpot, actually. It was my first time in New York. But I was on Irish radio with a lady from Mothers Against Drink Driving, which is an organization which has the worst maybe acronym because it's MAD.
MAD, yeah.
The acronym. But yeah, it was basically about them saying like, the sort of, this is encouraging drink driving and that sort of thing. So yeah, the idea of a game focused around it sounds neat. Get ready to be on radio a bit more.
Yeah, maybe that's just the little boost of controversy we need to drum up some attention for our game.
Good point.
It definitely feels like a Saints Row like mini game series.
Right.
It does.
Did you ever play, is it called Drink Driving, the Mario Kart party game?
Yes, I was just about to say my friends and I in college and high school theoretically would drink. So you have to like stop when you're not.
Is it called Don't Drink and Drive? Is that what it's called?
We called it drunk driving.
Okay.
But you can only drink when you're totally stopped. And there's like a certain number of beers you have to finish before the end of the race. So let's say it's like 3 laps, 3 beers. So at some point during every lap, you either need to stop and drink a beer, or you need to crush 3 beers and then do the whole race, or you need to do the whole race and then crush 3 beers before you cross the finish line.
At my high school, speaking of MAD and speaking of Mario Kart and being drunk, they tried to do an anti-drunk driving thing where they set up Mario Kart in the lobby and they gave out beer goggles. And they were like, you have to try to race in Mario Kart with beer goggles on.
Oh,
now, little did
wow.
they know, I'm a gamist. So I hopped in there with my Wii wheel and I came in first place with the beer goggles on. They were doing like the hardest difficulty. And I was like, what? 16-year-old me. I was like, I can drive drunk, no problem.
Wow.
Then everyone at the high school cheered and said, let's go drink. This guy's
dude.
awesome.
Everyone high-fived me. It was so cool.
Wow, is he a better drink? Is he a better driver with those goggles on?
It seems like he's more relaxed and confident.
Oh, God.
Give you a stat boost.
Let me quickly take this email from Tiernan because it's definitely directed at me. No offense. I don't think any of you have played this game. Hey guys, love the podcast. Question from Northern Ireland, but mostly definitely for Danny. Did you ever play the Gaelic Games PS2 game? And would you want a second modern one like everyone in the country seems to? Much love, folks. Slongafol, which means goodbye in Irish. Yes, there is a PlayStation 2 video game. There are 2 of them. There's one that was for. We have 2 domestic sports that aren't played outside of Ireland. One's called hurling. One's called Gaelic football. Hurling is not getting sick. It is a field sport, fastest field sport in the world.
Who could puke the best?
Exactly, yeah. You puke because you have to run around for 70 minutes. It's like the most tiring game in the world. But yeah, they both made these games. It was basically an Aussie rules game that was made in Australia, and they just kind of ported it. But like the scores in these sports are really high generally. So it's kind of like when you play like NBA Jam and the scores don't really add up to like real world games of basketball. It's that same problem where most games of hurling and Gaelic football would be like 1 goal and 15 points to 2 goals and 20 points. And you end up with like 2 points against 3 in the game because it's impossible to actually score in it. They were very bad. I am blessed to be in possession of an official plaque for Gaelic Games football, which I think the football game had a sequel actually, but I think I have a plaque for it that my friend Jeff Newman, who used to work for Sony, had, and he mailed it. Oh God, it's right there. It's actually behind me. You can't see it in the shop, but do you see it there behind me?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's Gaelic Games Football. That's like the official Sony disc
cool.
like plaque. So yes, I'm a big fan. I also have a copy of both games over there. I have Football 2 and Hurling.
Hell
You
yeah.
can see right beside a copy of Flat Out. Actually, that's a good game with destructible scenery. So yes, thank you, Tiernan. Those games are terrible. Would I like a sequel? I don't know. I'd like to see somebody do like a sensible soccer version of those sports. That'd be fun. Frank, you want to take this one from Ollie?
I have not read a single.
Give
I
it to
am
Jeremy. Come on.
demanding this one, and there is a reason.
Oh, sorry,
go for it.
Jeremy. Sorry, Jeremy.
is
You
his
read
one,
this one.
too.
My bad.
This is
Yeah,
there.
it is.
I will explain why afterwards. I'm demanding it. So Ollie Kant from the Noclip Discord, which if you're a patron and you're not on this Discord, we have some good chats going on always. What's a brilliant game you're mad that it feels like no one knows about? Mine would be In Other Waters. It's all set inside a HUD display about exploring an alien ocean, like if Subnautica was played entirely in the options menu. Seriously, it's amazing. I never thought a game would get me to care about a bunch of dots on a screen as much as that one. I also became obsessed with learning about marine biology afterwards. It just felt criminal no one was talking about it. So
is this from the... Yeah.
this is the first game from the dev of
Right.
Citizen Sleeper.
Wow.
Which I have not played, but I picked it up on Steam when I finished Citizen Sleeper. So Ollie, I will definitely be checking that out. But it also, from the sound of it, gets into that similar kind of like constrained minimalism that expresses a lot with a little, because the interface is literally just like from screenshots that I've seen, it's just like a radar. There's probably a word for like a marine radar that I don't know. But it's all just like that in dialogue. Yeah, sonar. That sounds right. Fish finder.
Anyone else got any other ones to add to this?
One that comes to mind is I genuinely adore Deadly Premonition, and that's a game that is well known for being a bad game, but like
I don't know if it's well enough for being a bad game. It's like a cult game.
yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like I feel like I really adore that game, like as ridiculous it is, but I genuinely earnestly believe like that it's like one of my favorite games. It's so endearing how goofy it is, but it is a Japanese made Twin Peaks adventure game. It is so good, but you have to get through like it has the worst opening. Like the opening is so bad because it's the lamest like Resident Evil inspired. You're just in a spooky forest and you shoot zombies and they have the worst voice acting. But after those 2 hours, then you enter the town and then it's like I love it. But Deadly Premonition is a game that I don't even like the sequel much, but I still think people should endure it because it's magic.
Is your impression that people don't? Because my impression of Deadly Premonition was that it was like a cult game where like most people, I guess, would bounce off it, but like that there's like a hardcore, group of people who are
it definitely has gotten its attention, and like there are people, but I feel like everyone needs to be on it. Everyone needs to be on it. In terms of actual like deep cuts, I think one that's really special to me is Top Skater by Sega, which was like before Crazy Taxi, the exact same team made Top Skater, which was in the arcades, a giant, you jump on it, you step on the thing and you're doing kick flips and it's blasting Pennywise at you.
Oh, I remember this thing.
The original Tony Hawk ride. Woo.
Yeah. I think I read a thing, I forget where, it was on one of the oral histories, but the people at Neversoft, they worked nearby an arcade where they had Top Skater.
No way.
They would go play Top Skater as they were working on Tony Hawk for inspiration.
That's awesome.
I think like the whole line of Sega AM2 games, like all of those, because I grew up in Orange County, we had a Sega City. I would go to Las Vegas where there was also a Sega City DreamWorks. So I have such a huge affinity for all of those Sega arcade games, also like House of the Dead. But Top Skater is one that like, I mean, it's impossible now to find a working condition one.
Right.
But like it's definitely a time and a place. You can emulate it, and it's actually kind of fun if you emulate it. But Top Skater is awesome. But yeah, just it's if you like because Crazy Taxi's universally adored, but Top Skater I feel like they also did this and it's pretty good.
Yeah, good shout. I hadn't thought about that game in forever, but now when I saw it, I was like, oh, I remember this. This was amazing, and it kind of makes sense that like. Maybe those arcades didn't last the test of time because you were just like standing on it and chucking it around a lot. Madness. If I had a couple, I always mention Cannon Brawl. It's a game that came out on PC and I think it's out on everything. It's on Switch and PlayStation 4 and everything. It's basically a real-time strategy game mixed with worms. I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. It was made in the Bay Area by some devs around here, Teresa Duringer and Pete Anstad, I think his name is. Super cool game. There's a game called Waking Mars that Tiger Style made. Randy Smith designed it. It came out on iPad as well, but I think I played it on PC. It's a very short, minimalist, kind of interesting game about you're like exploring Mars in like a jetpack 2D, and you're using, it's like puzzles where you're pollinating weird alien plants. Really good, fascinating game. And in that same sort of style, there's a game called And Yet It Moves that was made by Broken Rules, who I think probably most people know them from Old Man's Journey, which they're based in Austria. Old Man's Journeys are really good. They've had a lot of like good iPhone games and iPad games over the years. But And Yet It Moves came out. Oh my God, it came out in 2009. That's crazy. It's a game where all the art was made out of pieces of paper that they scanned, and you play sort of a was it Fido Dido? Is that the name of the 7-Up guy? The 7-Up mascot? Is that his name?
I thought that was the Spot.
No, that's the Spot. No, Cool Spot's
Fido
different.
Dido, yeah.
Fido Dido, right? Yeah. Do you guys, was this over here? Fido Dido? Is you know the sort of cartoon drawn character for 7-Up?
No.
Wow.
You don't remember that? Wow. Okay, maybe that was only in Europe. I have no idea. But yeah,
It
it's
just
that
looks like
type
Cool
of-
Spot. Is that not the same thing?
Oh no, you're looking at someone else.
Oh, no,
it
he's
must
like
be.
a little. He
No,
looks
Fido
like
Dido
like
7-Up. It's the same thing, dude. I swear.
He looks like a
No,
character. Cool Spot is like a little red spot
Red
with
dot.
sunglasses.
Yeah.
Fido
Yeah.
Dido looks like a Pepper Ann character in black and white.
What is
Yeah.
Bing doing to me right now? It's my fault for using Bing.
Yeah, it is your fault for using Bing.
The Wikipedia picture for Fido Dido is a 7-Up mural featuring Fido Dido in India. So
Wow.
he was
yeah, so maybe
he was a big hit over there.
Apparently, yeah, that's wild. I didn't know. Maybe that. Yeah, I figured maybe it wasn't. Fido has also been used by PepsiCo as a mascot for Slice in the United States and Frucko in Turkey.
Damn, they're just pimping him out for every drink. He has no identity of his own.
Can we just steal Fido Dido to be our Noclip mascot?
Yeah,
I feel
hell
like
yeah.
Fido Dido needs a job.
Yeah, dude,
Like,
he's probably. I wonder how. I hope he's doing okay. He's kind of just like a soft drink floating signifier with no identity of his own. You know?
Right? Yeah, he's just like a work for hire mascot or
Yeah,
something.
totally.
Yeah.
He looks like a pencil sketch for Doug.
He does. Yeah, it looks like a
100%,
90s
yes.
Nickelodeon character for sure.
And the main character from Any Other Moves kind of looks like that. I picked a frame of reference that nobody gets. Perfect. But yeah, that game is rad. It's out on Steam, I think still. It's I think the review, yeah, if you go to the review page on Steam, it's PC Gamer, IGN, and Citizen Game.
Hell yeah.
Reviewer Danny O'Dwyer for Citizen
Oh,
Game.
that's awesome.
So yeah, I love that game.
I got a hidden gem from way back in the day that you'd probably have to emulate because I'm sure a copy of it is like $400. Secret of Evermore. It was a Super Nintendo JRPG released by Squaresoft, but it was made by an American development team. So it's kind of this interesting mix of like the sensibilities of a JRPG, kind of like it came out around the same time as Secret of Mana, and I think that the name is obviously trying to kind of like get in on the hype for Secret of Mana that was going at the time. But it is a distinctly American version of the JRPG, and not in the way that Earthbound is, where it's like a Japanese development team doing Americana. It's like an American development team doing Americana. So it like starts out in kind of a weird 50s American town in the middle of nowhere that's literally called Podunk is the name of the town. And you're like a kid and his dog who gets sent back in time, and you're kind of like working your way through from like prehistoric to like the future in this very kind of like JRPG-ish plot. But I really enjoyed it as a kid. I've replayed it a couple times over the years, and it's hard for me to find people who've played it.
Yeah, this looks pretty cool.
I was just looking up the dev team on it, and there are some wild names getting thrown around here. Yeah, I was trying to figure out which Doug Smith it was. So it was the Doug Smith who made the Lode Runner games. Jeremy Soule did the soundtrack for this.
Oh,
So that's
it's a really
like-
good soundtrack.
Like, yeah, that's wild. So who would go on to do like, all the Skyrim?
Yeah, he did like Elder
all-
Scrolls. What else did he do? Includes Guild Wars, Elder Scrolls, Icewind Dale, and the Harry Potter series.
Icewind Dale. Wow.
Right, yeah. Jeremy, that's wild. Yeah, and it was made in Iowa.
That's so funny.
Oh, heck
That's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, that's when people ask you where games are made, Iowa is probably the last place you think of.
Oh, is that maybe that's where he's from? Maybe I got that wrong. I'm trying to see where the dev team was. It doesn't say. Yeah, because that's the problem. Because it's like you're right. It was an American team over here, but everything points back towards Squaresoft.
It is.
Yeah.
It's bizarre and kind of like I think it's worthwhile to play. I don't think it's as polished as Secret of Mana, which is one of my favorite games of all time. But it has it's almost identical in the kind of mechanics of it. Like it's an action RPG with kind of like a stamina percentage thing, like Secret of Mana. But yeah, it's just a weird like American development team looking at what Japanese action RPGs are doing and then making one with like a distinctly American character, but for Squaresoft. So yeah. Also, if anyone knows where to get a Squaresoft hoodie, I'll pay like $100 for one. Not a Square Enix hoodie. Not a Square Enix hoodie. Squaresoft.
You've got your Honda hoodie as well. You just
that
want
got
your
stolen,
classic
dude.
brands.
My Toyota hoodie got stolen.
Oh,
it was in the
no,
RV when it got
did?
stolen.
Sorry, I said it was Honda. My bad.
That's all right. How dare you?
What else was stolen in it? Was there anything else in there that was good?
Oh yeah, like so much shit. In fact, that was the saddest part about my RV getting stolen. Was the saddest was watching it be driven away while I screamed out the window. Second saddest was having to do like a dry, sterile, clinical list for the insurance people about all of the like priceless personal possessions that were in there. So they're like, trying to put a value on like a journal with like all my screenwriting ideas in it and stuff,
Right.
and shit like that. And
$1.
yeah, $1. That's at least $5. Yeah, and my Toyota hoodie. So rest in peace.
Motherfuckers. Yeah, rest in power. Killer. On that note, I think that's it. I think that's all of our electronic mails. Thank you so much for sending them in. Podcast at noclip.video. We'd love to hear your suggestions for documentaries as well. Lots of things. Just send them all in. Bit of housekeeping. We have a new video up on Noclip Crew, my first episode of my show Counterpoint, the sort of regeneration of my old show The Point on GameSpot, where I just talk about shit. I don't know. It doesn't need a name. I'm talking about Facing Worlds and how good that bad map is. Pissed off Matt Frary at Bethesda for saying that Facing Worlds was bad, but it's not really bad. I'm just doing the internet bait thing.
The internet. You gotta
It's
say
kind
it's
of bad. It's a bad map, but it's a good map. Bad map. There's lots of Scout's Knives is a bad map, but it's great.
That's how you do it, though. You make the video and you say, why is 2 Fort such a piece of shit? And then the video is like 2 Fort, arguably the greatest map ever released.
Map. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think I was pushing away from people saying like Facing World's the best map ever made, because it's like absolutely not, but it's brilliant. But it's like saying it's the best map ever made is like kind of, I think, missing the point of what makes that game so good.
Yeah.
So,
I really enjoyed your first Counterpoint. I thought it was really good. People
That
should
was
go
awesome.
check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for checking it out and doing voice work and filming it and doing gameplay.
Oh yeah, I'm in
It's a
that, aren't
team.
I?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
are.
you are in
Forgot
that,
about
yeah.
it.
It's fun to see you doing like an op-ed kind of thing again, because I have always really enjoyed your like perspective in like when you did the point for GameSpot back in the day, just like hearing you talk about your thoughts on games for 20 minutes or whatever. I always really enjoyed that, and like Noclip is so its own thing that it's not really a platform for you to do that, but yeah, it was cool to see you return to form and you doing that again.
Oh, so this I feel like this is so rude, but on the topic of crazy multiplayer maps, I feel like I played something in Counter-Strike that carries the spirit of that.
Okay.
A month ago, I was just going through crazy custom maps on Counter-Strike, and I played a map called Simpsons vs. Flanders.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Which
god.
just the two houses facing each other. So very much like Facing Worlds, but Simpsons versus Flanders. So if there's
oh my
ever
God, that's
Yours sounds
amazing.
more like it's Godzilla and King Kong again.
Yeah.
yeah. But I just couldn't like hold that to myself. But
Is it the Flanders house that was original, or is it the weird one that the Simpsons, like the like Springfield people built, where like this room has too much electricity? Yeah.
I think it's the OG. But yeah, I loved that Unreal Tournament video. Like getting to do gameplay capture on that was like, oh, this is so much fun.
I looked up Counter-Strike The Simpsons map, and the first video that came up was a guy in a Scream map called Ghostface Gaming. Frank, is this your secret channel?
Yeah, right. Dude, I feel like I remember playing the Simpsons map in Quake 3 a lot as well, because they had a Homer, they had the Bender skin as well. God, video games used to be awesome. They're still awesome. They're just different. They just grew up a bit. Thank you all so much. It's very funny to see people in the comments saying, wow, Danny's cursing. because I don't curse on Noclip, but like I curse like a Irishman in my day-to-day life. So lots of fun. We also set live the archive. The Gameplay Archive channel is now available. So, over the years, we have made lots of documentaries about video games, and part of the process for that is recording gameplay footage. At the start, massive shout out to Frank for helping to organize that and stick stuff in playlists and name everything. Massive shout out to our internet providers for not shutting us off, for uploading 728 4K 60 videos to YouTube. We don't have a short URL for this one yet because we don't have enough subs, but we basically already almost do. It's like 600 subs on that channel now, which is interesting because all it is gameplay. It's basically a place for us to upload all of our 4K 60 gameplay that we capture for the documentaries as a way of preserving them and also as a way of people using them however they wish. We can't officially say, hey, download our YouTube videos because that's not cool. So I'm just saying, hey, if you want to, this channel just exists. We will put things up on it. And yeah, check it out if you want to. Just go to any of the Noclip channels, and if you go to featured channels, it's in there. It's got an orange icon, or if you look up Noclip Gameplay Archive, or just go to our Twitter, you can see it. Like there's 258 videos that are Black Mesa. There's 100 videos for PS5 Demon's Souls. They're all there. Just do them whatever you will, and we'll update that channel as we move on. I wanted to go to videos on the tab and go by sort by most popular, but it literally isn't able to do it yet because there's just so many videos. But some of these have views on them. They mostly all have views on them. This is great. 4 views, 5 views, 122 views, 50 views, 6 views, 17 views. Amazing. So good stuff. Thanks to Frank for that. I wanted to recommend, check out the Roller Coaster Tycoon playlist, because for that one I downloaded a bunch of mods. So there's like 1960s recreation of Tomorrowland with Autopia. Like Universal Studios, like the mod, like the Attack on Titan map. So yeah, in the Roller Coaster Tycoon playlist, there's also fun. By the end of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I was just trying to get weird with it. So I set a bunch of gorillas loose in the park. And so that's really good footage. All the games are split into their own playlists. So don't go to the videos tab. It's a nightmare. Just go to the playlists and they're all there. And maybe we should do like a Noclip's favorites, playlist that has some of those in it, some of the weirder ones or tough boss fights in Demon's Souls.
Yeah, I think we still have to make our way through the Demon's Souls stuff, but yeah, all the one-shot boss fights. So the one where I finally get the I forget the 2 griffins is amazing. Man-eaters, that's it, the double man-eaters.
In Demon's Souls?
Yeah,
oh, man,
yeah.
I still
gosh.
haven't beaten those. Jesus. I'm still stuck on those. Also still stuck in Elden Ring, so just stuck everywhere. Next week's podcast is going to be myself and Jeremy in Los Angeles, so listen out for that one. We are filming in LA. It's our first in-person filming for a project we have not yet announced. It is a documentary series. Let's just say it. We're doing another series, folks. Kind of like Hades Developing Hell, but not Hades. A different game. We'll have news on that in the coming weeks and months, but coming weeks definitely. Actually, we'll be announcing it in June. But yeah, we're heading out to film that. That should be good stuff. Speaking of Hades, if you're a patron in the $10 tier for bonus videos and stuff, we put up a Gen Z interview. It's an hour and 10 minutes of Gen Z of Supergiant fame talking about the art direction on Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre. If you're interested in art, it is a must watch because it's just really interesting talking to somebody who is easily one of the most acclaimed and talented artists in the industry, talk about how, I guess, unconfident or unsure she is about everything she does, and how she makes those creative decisions to not spend too much time on stuff that needs to be done quickly. It's really, really fascinating.
We once found a rusty knife buried in the backyard.
Whoa.
That's all.
Should we ask him here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if he remembers. Sorry, I just spit. I wonder if he remembers.
Making note of this.
Yeah.
We also have the Doom podcast, of course. If you go check out the feed, you'll get access to all of our Patreon exclusive podcasts. And also, people were asking us to go up on Amazon Music, so I added the feed to Amazon Music, which I think also added it to Audible. So we should be on there. If there's anything we're not on, just let us know. I think we're on everything now. But if there's some podcast service you use that we're not on, shoot me an email.
Wait for the email. It's like, why aren't you guys on Splango?
I know, yeah. Splango's the coolest.
We need people to seed our files on Napster and Kazaa. Get us out there.
Yeah, hell yeah. We're missing out on the P2P market.
Yeah. Those LimeWire shares. Let's get them up. If you'd like to support this podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to all of our bonus episodes and the official Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/Noclip. We are at Noclip Video on Twitter. I'm at Danny O'Dwyer. He's at Garasha, at Frank Howley, at Jeremy B. Jane. Watch the docs over on youtube.com/Noclip Video. Listen to the podcast here. Check out our Noclip Crew channel at youtube.com/Noclip Crew Video and drop us a review. Gents, what you playing? Frank, what do you got playing for the rest of the week?
Oh man, what's on my radar? I mean, Call of Duty Warzone with the homies because I do adore it. I might try. Oh, you know what? I'm deep into Resident Evil stuff, so it's like now I'm like, do I go on the offshoots? Do I get into Onimusha? Do I replay Devil May Cry?
Yes, dude. Demon Siege with Jean Reno.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh my gosh.
Jean Reno is one of the main playable characters in Onimusha 3.
Yeah.
Leon.
Yeah. Exactly. That was my introduction to Jean Reno as a child.
Wow.
Which is so fucking funny. I'm sure he'd be so mad about that.
Dude, David Bowie, first time I listened to him was in Omicron the Nomad.
Same, I was going to say. Same fucking thing, dude.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
Jesse, what are you playing?
Probably I bought a bunch of tactics RPGs because Jeremy's been talking about it for the last couple pods. I'm playing Triangle Strategy right now. I got War of the Lions on my PlayStation Vita because I have one of those for some reason, and Tactics Ogre. So I'm gonna just be turning into a monster over the next week.
Terrific. Jeremy, what about you?
Oh man, I've been playing more Persona 5. It's very, very good. It is a long fucking game. I've played so much of it, and I feel like I'm almost at the halfway point. But that's kind of the joy of Persona. It's just you're just hanging out with your friends and being a kid in Tokyo. So I will probably do that.
Excellent. I got a key for Prey, the original one.
Oh.
So I'm gonna check that out. It's not available on Steam anymore, but you can find them on the internet. So I'm going to play some of that because I'm into that. And yeah, we should, let's chase some people up and see if we can do something on that. That'd be cool. The other one that I was looking at, somebody noticed this actually in the Facing Worlds video, which was insane, was Twinson's Little Big Adventure. So Little Big Adventure was like a classic, super popular game in Europe, PC adventure game made in France. And it was called something weird over here.
Twinson's Odyssey, I think.
No, that was the sequel. Little Big Adventure 2 was called Twinson's Odyssey. The first one was called like Renegade or something. It had a really weird name in the States. I don't think it was very popular. But so a bunch of people are remaking, or not remaking, they're making a new game in the lineage of Little Big Adventure, which I did not know about. So yeah, it'd be cool if we did something on that maybe down the road. But in the meantime, I'm checking out the Little Big Adventure Steam stuff. They re-released them, I guess, on Steam a couple of years back. .emu did, so I'm gonna check that out because I haven't played those games in a hot minute. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing for the week. Is just playing 90s games. I guess Facing Worlds put it in my veins. Thank you all for listening to the podcast. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon and watching our documentaries. And we'll see you live from Los Angeles next week. See you then.